I was the enemy. So this is not the video I was hoping to make today. Obviously, I didn't put up a video in February like I said I was going to in the last video. I kept hoping to catch up on my writing, and then I'd put out a video once I had. And I never really did. To be honest, I'm still way behind on the schedule that I made for myself, and I don't know for sure when I'm going to catch up. Because I didn't make a video, then I wasn't keeping myself accountable. That was something that making the first few videos this year really did for me. It kept me going, even when I wasn't making a ton of progress on the writing. And so over the last month, I just kept finding it easier to not write, to not go back and check my schedule and see how far behind I was getting. But I think it's important to give myself a little slack. I'm not a professional author. I'm a dad, I'm a teacher, I have a lot of other things going on in my life. It turns out that with all my scheduling and planning, the one thing I forgot to build in was time to deal with potential burnout. I gave myself some flex time later on in the year when I knew I was going to be really busy, but I kind of forgot that I hadn't really dealt with this level of focus and pressure that I was putting on myself for my writing project. And I did. As soon as I had a chance to let my foot off the gas on writing to go deal with other things, I realized how much I had been putting into it. And yeah, I got a little bit burnt out. To paraphrase the famous quote, no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. I guess in this case, I was the enemy. So speaking of having lots going on, I didn't actually finish my video yesterday. So I actually have done quite a bit of writing since I started the writing part at the beginning of February. It's just that what I had to do was quite a bit bigger than I realized. The section I have revised so far is about 12 to 13,000 words long, and when it comes down to it, that's almost half of the entire first book in my series. It's not a super long book, but when I was thinking about what I had to do, I was comparing it to what I'd already done. This section that I've been working on is also a really important section to get right. It's near the end of the book, and it has a lot to do with the big choices that the characters are making and how they have become the characters that they need to be so that they can make those choices. I wanted to make sure that I did this part well, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right. I've also done a lot of thinking and planning, aside from just the butt-in-seat, hands-on-keyboard writing that I've done. There were a few parts of this revision in book 3 that I knew I needed to revise, but I didn't actually know how I was going to fix the problems that they had. And for a lot of those, I do now. I figured out what I actually need to do and made a plan for how to revise some of the really important and tricky sections that have come up in this book. Maybe the biggest thing that I did successfully manage over the last little bit was actually properly figuring out the ending. I'd written an ending before, but I didn't really like it. It kind of felt forced and a bit cliche, sort of like how I figured a book like mine should end, but it didn't really have anything to it that made it really how my book should end. And that was something that really bothered me. It was a big part of my frustration and worry as I was finishing reading book 3, and the feeling that maybe this book wasn't worth it. Now I know how it ends, and I feel a lot better about that. All right, so looking ahead, I think I'm having to admit that I'm not going to have finished by Easter what I had hoped to have finished by Easter. My initial plan was to have my draft 1.5 of the entire third book done by the spring break here so that I could share it with my initial readers. Book 3 is the only one of the series that I haven't had anybody actually read all the way through and give me any feedback on, and I want to get that done as quickly as I can. I think, however, that I will be able to be finished that sometime in April. That seems reasonable as I'm looking back at my long-range plans. I still have to finish the ending of the book, and that's something I'm actually really excited to get to. I mentioned earlier that I figured out what I was going to do with that, and it just feels so right, this idea that I came up with. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. Then I have to go back and revise the middle. I have to cut out some bloat, some of that first draft meandering, and use the new time that I will have gained from that to do some intentional character and world building, some foreshadowing for what's coming up, and shore up some of the secondary plots. I also didn't actually build in time for making videos, even though I talked about that as something that I was going to need to do. It was on my schedule, but it overlapped with the timelines for other things and other tasks, and I need to actually carve out some time to make sure that this gets done. I'm also thinking I might try to plan for a week, a little reel, something like that, whether that's going to be a book talk about something I've read, or maybe just a little write with me section about one of my morning writing sessions. Not sure. All right. This video seems like it's getting pretty long, so I think it's time to wrap it up. One of the things that I have been trying to decide on is how concrete or specific I can get with the details that I'm talking about in these videos. The more specific I get, the more I'm really locking myself in and holding myself accountable, which, as I've talked about today, I think is really important. However, there's also some worry. These are books that I want to publish, and I don't know if I should be giving away spoilers. There's always the potential that something that I don't know was an issue ends up being an issue down the line. There's a couple of book YouTube content creators who I've been watching and enjoying their content, and they've been really careful about not sharing too much. One of the things that I'm thinking I might try to do is have a project code name for this project so that I can talk about it rather than just saying my book series. I'm going to see if I can come up with a project title and share that in the next video. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you live around here, stay warm, and I'll see you next time.